Good evening, and welcome to our very first Franken13 countdown. This is very exciting.
This is very exciting indeed. I am Marc Macrina.
And I am Jason Pritchard.
Why am I mopping outside? It's dirt. I'll just keep going.
All right, anyway, for our first show, we thought we would celebrate by remembering all of the strange and messed up stuff that got us into making movies ourselves.
That's right.
Radio shows, smut films, and so on. Things that we've been doing since basically the 5th grade.
Smut film. That's right. Those movie and TV moments that terrified us throughout our childhood, yet also fascinated us enough to start freaking people out with our own stuff. Some of them you yourself may be able to relate to.
Well, others you'll probably mock us for.
Most likely.
Yeah.
And some of us keep finding severed heads in the locker room.
So that's where that was.
Right. So, lie back on those couches, call a good therapist, and get ready to open up the Pandora's box of repressed childhood memories.
Yep, this is our top 13 things that scared the crap out of us as kids countdown.
I'm afraid. Number 13, the 7 Little Indians episode of The Facts of Life. The last thing you would expect as a mechanism for childhood trauma is The Facts of Life, with its Blair and Joe, opposites attract chemistry ploys, Mindy Cohen's one-liners, Mrs. Garrett screaming, "Girls, girls," all the time, and George Clooney, who is still better in this than Batman and Robin. However, there was one episode that did more than just take the good, take the bad. In fact, this particular story took a turn toward the terrifying, at least for me it did. The episode centers around the girls coming back from a horror movie, and understandably so, some of them are a little riled up. Things, however, quickly turn nightmarish as one by one, the girls are actually murdered by an unknown killer. Eventually, you find out it was all a dream. Actually, a dream within a dream, which doubles the mind screw this episode delivers. And yeah, that's a guy wearing a pig mask while waving a chainsaw. Who the hell directed this episode? Toby Hooper? Everyone's, of course, all right in the end, where everything is back to the way it should be. Having recently seen the episode, it was hard to imagine this being such a scary moment. The episode is goofy and pretty funny at times, but the 7-year-old in me would totally disagree. It's a scary show. Scary stuff. Blair was still hot, though.
All right. Number 12, the opening to An American Werewolf in London. This one actually had an effect on me when I was older. American Werewolf in London is my all-time favorite werewolf movie. It is the best werewolf movie, by the way, mainly because I am a huge fan of director John Landis, who also directed Michael Jackson's Thriller video, which is where I first heard about this movie and went out of my way to see it. Now, many people see this as either a comedy or a horror. It is shocking as hell.
Hey, did you hear something?
Just now?
Yes.
No.
But it can be just as funny.
Thank you.
Yes, sir?
A naked American man stole my balloons.
What?
For me, there are too many impactful moments for this countdown, but 2 really stick out. The first and most disturbing comes about 20 minutes in when Jack and David are attacked on the Morse. The lead up to this attack really plays with your nerves. You know it's coming, you're just not sure when. But it's the tortured screaming of Jack when the werewolf finally gets to him that really bothers me. You are convinced that he is being killed by this thing. The second scene, which has more of a grotesque/comedy aspect to it, is when David first sees Jack as a zombie.
Can I have a piece of toast?
It is disgusting as heck, and David wants to know why the hell he's there. But Jack acts as if there's nothing wrong. And there's this distracting piece of skin that just dangles during the whole scene. I love it. Actor Griffin Dunn initially became very depressed after first seeing this makeup applied.
You could see as I'm putting these pieces on him with several different pieces. I'm kind of sinking more and more in the chair and just getting more and more depressed. And it's like, what's the matter, Griffin? Nothing. I go, no, really, something's wrong. What's the matter? And finally said, look at it.
Quite an unsettling experience, to tell you the truth. I became profoundly depressed because you got a very strong sense of what you would look like if you were dead.
Even as a boy, I knew werewolves weren't real, but after seeing this movie, even today, I'm always looking over my shoulder if I'm walking at night during a full moon. I always avoid English pubs with grumpy dart players.
You made me miss. Sorry, couldn't resist.
Yeah.
Number 11, Slumber Party Massacre 2.
Come on, baby, it's rock and roll.
This slasher movie about a killer, demonic, undead guitar player that murders teenage girls during, well, a slumber party is actually a very lame movie. Surprise, surprise. Like most of the things on this list, it was far more horrific to me when I was young. The youngster who stayed up past their bedtime, stuck downstairs to catch the overnight garbage movies on HBO. God, did this movie mess with me. Maybe because it was on at like 3 in the morning, but there's a lot of gore, hallucinogenic scares, and overall just some really messed up moments, ranging from moving food to oversized growing pimples. My father always did say heavy metal was bad for me, and this movie does sort of prove his point. Although now the thought of a drill at the end of an electric guitar could easily be the coolest thing invented. Yeah, right? At that time, I wouldn't go near a guitar or any instrument, actually. I mean, imagine a satanic piano or killer accordion. Hellish harmonica.
Okay. Number 10, the Hobbling scene in Misery. Kathy Bates may be one of the best actresses out there, and for all I know, a very sweet lady. But for me, I can only see her in the most terrifying role. No, not the hot tub scene in About Schmidt.
Ah, I thought she was hot.
Okay. But rather her role as #1 psychotic fan, Annie Wilkes in Misery.
Right.
I personally love movie adaptations to Stephen King novels, even though they don't always follow the book to the page. And for me, Misery is one of the best. An amazing cast, excellent moments in suspense, shocking violence, and the fact that it was directed by Meathead himself. The part that makes me cringe to this day is the hobbling scene. Once that piece of wood is placed in between James Caan's legs, you know something really bad is going to happen. And the thing is, Kathy Bates has strapped him down into his bed, and he can't do anything to stop it. In this case, you see the damage done with no merciful cutaway, again with screaming agony.
God, I love you.
Number 9, the robot woman from Superman 3. I've actually spoken to many people about this scene, and unlike many of the other moments on this list, this one seems a little more universal. Maybe not everyone was as scared after seeing it like I was. However, when mentioning Superman 3, people often refer to 2 rather terrifying moments in the film. The woman who is transformed into a robot, or Richard Pryor simply being in the movie. In any case, this scene is just downright creepy. I mean, even today, it still manages to send a shiver down my spine. Upon first seeing this as a kid, I was simply horrified. Special effects-wise, it may be a bit corny, but it's still pretty damn impressive. In fact, it's probably one of the better effects in any of the Superman sequels. Looking at it now, I see it more as a sort of B-movie Metropolis-looking creation. And honestly, it still creeps me out. Probably because it looks so outdated effects-wise that it somehow makes it even creepier. Whatever the reason, for me, it's one of the most disturbing elements in any Superman movie. And mind you, I have seen Superman 4 Quest for Peace and Parker Posey's awful performance as Miss Tessmacher in Superman Returns. Miss Tessmacher.
Number 8, Return to Oz. This is actually one of 2 Oz-related moments on the list. Though this is the lesser scary of the 2, it's still pretty frightening to watch.
Looking back at this movie, the overall tone of it is creepy. Dorothy's own family believes she's gone nuts, so they send her to get shock treatments. The characters joining her in Oz are not as charismatic as the original. A chicken, an iron thing that constantly needs winding up or it stops or can't talk, a pumpkin head, and a moose connected to a couch? But I think what was creepy about this movie the most were the wheelers, which most people have a problem with, and the rocks within Oz, which I now in retrospect find extremely fascinating knowing the animation that went on behind it. Now I can understand why someone would dream of a fantasy world like the original movie, but this drug-induced nightmare I cannot understand at all.
Number 7, Artek's sinking from The Never-Ending Story. To anyone growing up in the 80s, this movie was the shit. There was nothing like it before or since. It had everything: brave warriors, amazing creatures, rock people, dragons with dog faces, statues with nipples on them, a giant snail, an even gianter wolf, an even gianter bat, and an even gianter talking turtle, and also the kid from Frankenweenie. But for all its adventure and wonderment, it had some pretty terrifying moments. The Nothing, the evil force wishing to vanquish all imagination from the world. The Nothing's number 1 servant, Gamork, was pretty damn creepy. The little elf with a very giant needle giving Valcor what I can only assume is his heroin fix. And also the way Bastion eats his apple.
The Empress.
Very weird. But all this fails in comparison to the agonizing torture of watching Artek's, Atreyu's loving and noble steed, sink to death in the swamps of sadness. I mean, if you didn't shed a tear during this moment, you clearly have never owned a pet or a soul. This is a horrible moment, and though it only lasts a few seconds, it seems to lock you in excruciating fear for hours. Of course, at the end of the movie, balance is restored, and we see all is well with Artek and everyone in the land of Fantasia. Everyone's okay. Until, of course, the series of horrible, plague-ridden sequels that would soon follow. Seriously, if the Nothing wanted to vanquish anything, go after those pieces of crap with a side order of suck.
Number 6, Jaws 4, The Revenge. Okay, of course we know how bad a movie this is, but as a kid I remember being freaked out by this movie simply because of its opening.
Sean goes out on his boat at night, and out of nowhere the shark bursts out and rips off his arm. The only music heard other than the actual appearance of Jaws is the haunting melody of singing carolers on the shore, unaware of the screams for help by Brody. In retrospect, the missing arm is a pretty bad effect. But as a kid, it was very disturbing. This seems to be a running theme here. Helplessness accompanied by tortured screaming really used to bother me. The movie may be bad, the shark incredibly fake, and the story filled with plot holes, but by the 4th time around, that shark got really dark, taking out swimmers Freddy Krueger style.
And hey, if the movie was good enough for Michael Caine to sign on to it, well, I don't know, maybe he just lost a bet.
Probably lost a bet. Number 5, The Unmasking of the Fly. Believe it or not, both of us had some issues with this movie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
We did. Though the remake is far more intense, gorier, and, let's face it, better, the original just has some creepy moments. The obvious one being when the fly is revealed. Don't ask me where we got this. Just imagine what this must have been like having seen this for the first time. Sure, it's a guy in a mask, but look how real that mask looks. In fact, it seems the creators paid attention to every detail of the mask, making sure nothing looked artificial, the way it twitched and gestured. I mean, this was the 50s Phantom of the Opera moment, and honestly, as over-the-top and hammy as it may seem today, I think the scene still has power, if only for seconds. You can't help but still be taken aback by the revealing of this monster. The other memorable and terrifyingly creepy scene is the fly with the human head. The poor trapped mutation bound in a spiderweb, unable to escape its gruesome fate of being devoured by a large-ass spider. All it can do is scream, "Help me!" That scream has since become an iconic moment in horror history.
Number 4, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
It's singing, which direction we are.
No, not the Tim Burton flop with Michael Jackson. I mean, Johnny Depp. Though quality-wise, it was frightening enough. No, I mean the original Gene Wilder classic, and while many people have attested to having a strange fear about this movie, mine may seem a bit different.
Now, several people find problems with the children's supposed torture scenes due to sins of greed, hunger, gum chewing, or television. But it was made clear in the movie that it was a very extreme way of learning a lesson for their misdeeds, and they weren't gonna die.
Right. When they leave here, they'll be completely restored to their normal, terrible old selves. But maybe they'll be a little bit wiser for the wear.
My issue actually comes at the very end of the movie. After Willy Wonka sings and serenades everybody while giving a grand tour of his magical land of diabetes, Charlie is the only child left and wants to know why he didn't win. And that's when, snap, he turns on him.
You stole fizzy lifting drinks. You bumped into the ceiling, which now has to be washed and sterilized, so you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
That really got to me. You suddenly realized that Charlie had really screwed up and lost everything. And Willy Wonka, despite his facade as a friendly magical candy man, could get pissed off just like anyone else. Almost like a parent reprimanding you for the worst thing you could possibly do. Of course, Charlie redeems himself when he returns the everlasting gobstopper and wins the prize. But if I were Charlie, I'd be very pissed off.
Number 3, Punky Brewster in the Cave. Holy Jesus, is this a terrifying one? It is. No hidden psychological agenda, no subtle underbellies of creepiness, just flat out, holy God, terror. Hell, I'm getting creeped out just thinking about it now.
Yeah, it's scary.
As a kid, I used to love Punky Brewster, and how could you not? She was my generation's little orphan Annie, except in neon, and played by an actress with a name right out of Battlestar Galactica meets Woodstock. But then, I saw this episode, and I could never watch the show again. Basically, Punky, Henry, and the gang go on a weekend camping trip where the kids come across an ancient cave with ghost Indians in it that warn them of an evil spirit.
A wicked spirit lived deep under the earth, in the heart of this cave. The children survived the terrible traps and ferocious creatures created by the spirit.
Sure, you could say the show was jumping the shark here, but to me, the shark did more than jump. It jumped, got hold of the show, chewed it up, spit it out, and turned it into a frickin' episode of Night Gallery. Punky's friends start disappearing one by one thanks to the magical powers of the evil spirit. This was scary enough for me, again feeling that horrible anticipation of who was going to go next and when. But to add to that already horrific slap in my face, the spirit brings her friends back only to find them transformed into... Well, look at them. It's like a playground for the exorcist. One girl is stripped of her flesh, another comes back possessed by a devil. The damn dog is a giant pony-looking thing, also in skeletal form, might I add. And this kid, this face, look at it. Even looking at it today, which I had to do for all of these, but this was one of the tough ones, it still creeps me out. Sure, effects-wise, it's pretty lame, but like the robot woman from Superman 3, the old-school effects seem to be one of the reasons these guys are so terrifying looking. Eventually, Punky power prevails, And as per usual sitcom formula.
Kids and Mr. Pieces left the cave and lived happily ever after.
Wow. That was the best ghost story I ever heard.
Well, it didn't matter to me because I didn't sleep for a whole month and avoided Punky Brewster like a fat guy avoids broccoli. The only downside was that I had nothing to watch. Thankfully, Alf was right around the corner, and all he did was fight a giant space roach. What's with sitcoms and giant bugs, anyway?
I don't know.
When a man's an empty
Number 2, The Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz.
and yet I'm torn apart.
This is actually my own personal number 1 problem, moment, whatever you want to call it. And once again, it involves The Wizard of Oz. While most people were creeped out by the Wicked Witch, the terrifying flying monkeys, or the Twister blowing the house away.
I hated the Munchkins. I'm just going right out and saying I'd rather have the flying monkey. They were useful. They had wings.
Anyway,
Sorry.
For me, it was the Tin Man.
The Tin Man.
No, not the Tin Man as we know and love him in the final film, with his trusty oil can and his ability to do that smooth criminal move that everybody wishes they could do. No, I don't have a problem with that guy. I'm talking about the original Tin Man. To those who may not know this, then Broadway actor Buddy Ebsen, later of Beverly Hillbillies fame, was originally cast to play the part of the Tin Man. I first learned of this in 1990 during a documentary of Oz which showed original makeup tests, and when I saw it, well, just look at it! This thing looks like it's suffering from a terminal illness. Now look, understanding the movie process more now, I know that this is only a preliminary test and the look was changed well before he was even recast. But as a 12-year-old, the fact that this was even a consideration was enough to freak me out. I had nightmares for weeks just from these photos alone. Buddy Ebsen was only on the set for the first couple weeks of shooting, and even recorded a version of If I Only Had a Heart.
When a man's an empty kettle, he should be on his mettle, and yet I'm torn apart. Just because I'm presuming that I could be kinda human if I only had a heart.
And why isn't Buddy Ebsen in the final film?
What they used for makeup was aluminum dust, and powdered my face with aluminum dust. It creates a cloud of aluminum dust in the air, and you're going to breathe some of that stuff. You're going to powder you maybe a dozen times a day, and at the end of 10 days, I had breathed so much of it, my lungs were coated interiorly, and it choked off the oxygen. I yelled for help. They took me to the hospital, and I spent 6 weeks there under an oxygen tank.
Afterwards, he was replaced by Jack Haley, who is in the final movie. Music composer Harold Arlen liked to take behind-the-scenes home movies, and all of that is in this documentary, which is really creepy. This is probably because, first of all, these characters are taken out of their element, and second, this was done in the 30s, and everyone involved in this is dead. There's also a deleted scene called The Jitterbug, in which the only material that remains is the soundtrack and these home movies from behind the fake trees, where you can literally see men in suits inside operating them. It's totally f***ed up. Looking at it now, it's really a fascinating documentary. And if I had seen it when I was older, I'd probably be like all really cool. But I saw this when I was like 11. And that evil Tin Man is a lot easier for me to look at now, but it still freaks me out, and I still won't go down into my basement at night.
I won't go down to his basement at all. Number 1, The Death of the Shoe from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And this is it, the most terrifying thing, at least to me anyway. And you're talking to a guy who laughed off The Exorcist, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Paranormal Activity, and the Spice Girls movie, The Visitor, and oh, sorry. Wow. Not the one with Richard Jenkins, another Visitor movie. Anyway. Yeah. But all the horror movies in the world fail in comparison to this one moment in, of all things, a family movie, a Disney family movie. How children can watch this scene without finding themselves in therapy for a year is beyond me. Sure, Who Framed Roger Rabbit was an excellent film. Loads of laughs, amazing special effects, beloved characters getting into wild shenanigans, and oh my God! What the hell's Angels on Wheels was that? Seriously, this movie has some adult moments to it for certain, but holy shiitake mushrooms, that poor shoe! For those who don't know, that barrel of toxic waste is called dip, a mixture of chemicals able to actually kill a tune. And just to show he's not bluffing or making any of this up, Judge Doom, played by Doc Brown, gone Section 12 himself, Christopher Lloyd, grabs the most cutest, innocent little shoe you have ever seen and incinerates him. Just flat out melts him without any reason. Look at him rub his fingers together. Look at the blood. Tunes bleed? What? Blood from a cartoon? Plus, the shoe did nothing but show a little affection. Granted, the guy does have the name Doom, so this should really not come as a surprise to me. But I doubt even Michael Myers would pull this kind of sadist crap, especially since there were other tunes far worse to try this on. If anything, the only reassuring thing about this dip stuff is that it has the potential to kill tunes I really actually hate, like Dennis the Menace, the Flintstones, the Jetsons, or even Goofy.
I like Goofy.
Wow. Goofy sucks.
Sorry.
There, I said it.
And there it is, folks. 13 of the most traumatizing childhood crushing moments in television and movies for the two of us.
I'm scared.
Yeah. These are moments that made us the sad sacks of suds with inner child cowardice that we are today.
Bless you all. I know I'll be calling my mom after this.
So will I. I mean, not your mom. I mean, you know what I mean.
No, I don't. Leave my mom alone. Jeez. I'm telling.
When I was a kid, I saw a dead body. Right? Then I saw a cat get eaten by a dog, which then got eaten by a bigger dog, which then got eaten by a bear. And then I got hit by an RV, and old people body parts got splashed in my face. In my face. Tin Man, Punky Brewster, you guys are f***ing wusses.
Do bears really eat dogs?
I think cows do.